Welcome to the Caribbean Cricket Podcast, your one-stop shop for all things West Indies cricket. By the fans, for the fans.
And I listen to the Caribbean Cricket Podcast.
Indeed, you are people who listen to the Caribbean Cricket Podcast, and welcome back to another short edition, episode, chat, narrative, conversation, call it what you will. My name's Machel St. Patrick here at one half of the Caribbean Cricket Podcast, and thank you for joining once again. If you're listen to this on the audios, you know what to do: rate, review, do all of that jazz, follow, subscribe, etc. And if you listen to this on YouTube, you can see the ticker tape below: like, share, subscribe, roll to 5K, all of that jazz. You can find everything you need to know about the Caribbean Cricket Podcast on our website, www.caribbeancricketpodcast.com. And if you could be so kind, you can also become a patron of the Caribbean Cricket Podcast. Just head to www.patreon.com/Carib Cricket. And you can join and be a patron and follow the movement and support it for anything as little as one of your currency, wherever you may be. I'm smiling because I was literally just about to say this is going to be a short one, but it is going to be a short one. People always say to me, Mash, try and do the short format content. So this one's not going to go longer than 20 minutes. I'll commit to it not going longer than 20 minutes. And as the kind of title alludes to, this one I want to talk about Joshua Da Silva. And I've had this in my notes for ages, to be honest, even before him hitting the unbeaten 136 in the Team Headley versus West Indies Academy game last week. I'd written in my notes, literally going back at least a month and a half ago, do a video on Josh Da Silva, do a video on Josh Da Silva. And it's taken me ages to finally get round to it, but here it is. And the reason why I want to do this video is because at the time that I thought, let me do a video on Josh Da Silva, what had prompted it was some of the criticism I'd been reading on social media. And again, of course, I know social media, generally speaking, is for dunces, myself included. And, you must take everything that you read on social media with a pinch of salt. You shouldn't take things that you read in live streams, and even some of you in the comments below. I can't take all of it to heart, but it does provide somewhat of a talking point when I see a narrative that gets repeated again and again by the fans. At the end of the day, we say the Caribbean Cricket Podcast is by the fans, for the fans. So I got to stay true to the comments that I see. And over the last few, however many test matches, let's say the last 6 months, there's always been this kind of repeated idea of, Shane Dowritt should be brought in. Josh Da Silva is under pressure, and so on and so forth, right? And I always found that quite weird. And people will say, Mash, that's because you just like Josh Da Silva, so you'll defend him and so on and so forth. But it was never that deep for me. My whole thing was that I didn't think that Josh's performances warranted the level of scrutiny that people had raised about him. So first things first, let's just talk about what are his stats. Josh has played 22 test matches for the West Indies, and he currently averages 28. Okay, that's from 38 innings. In terms of series, in his last 6 series. His last 6 series, this is what he's done. Sri Lanka away, he averaged 37 in the two test matches with a high score of 54, 150. England at home, he averaged 98 because, of course, he scored his maiden ton, 100 unbeaten in that series. Bangladesh at home, he averaged 15 in 2 innings. Australia away, he averaged 13 in 4 innings. And I think this is where the pressure calls came from, because people saw him struggle at home against Bangladesh. They saw him struggle away against Australia. Then he went to Zimbabwe and he averaged 56, 2 not outs. One of the reasons for that high average was the fact he had 2 not outs, high score of 44. And then away against South Africa, he averaged 20, which again, you could say is subpar. But if you remember what happened in South Africa, pretty much everyone struggled on that tour, and he had a high score of 34. So at current, That's his last 6 test match series. Okay. So at current, like I say, he's played 22 test matches and the average is 28. And the narrative that I'd been picking up on was a lot of people kind of saying, "Oh, Josh needs to hold a drop, bring back Shane Dowrich, etc." So when people kept saying that, I was like, sorry, I'm just adjusting the light. When people kept saying that, I was like, let me go and look at Shane Dowrich's stats though. Shane Dowrich has played. Sorry, let me find this actually. So Josh has had 38 innings for the West Indies. Shane Dowrich has had 62. Josh averages 28 from his 38 innings. Shane Dowrich averages 29 from his 62 innings. And the reason why I've raised that is, for me, that's much of a muchness. Josh is early in his career. Shane has had an extensive career. Granted, there's been the kind of huge issues about when he came home from that New Zealand tour and he's not been seen since, and so on and so forth, right, in terms of West Indies duty. From Josh's 38 innings, he has 100 and 350s. From Shane Dowrich's 62 innings, he has 300s and 950s. But by the by, is there that much of a difference in their test match career that justifies the people who have been like, you got to drop Josh Da Silva, Shane Dowrich has got to come in, Now, I'll be balanced. In the recent 4-day West Indies Championship, Shane Dowrich returned to play for Barbados. He played all 5 matches for Barbados. He had 8 at-bats or 8 innings at bat, and he averaged in this tournament 58. So I'm going to keep it complete. I'm going to keep it buck. I'm going to keep it 100. He averaged 58. He scored 230 runs. He had 100 and 150 with a high score of 124 not out. To all intents and purposes, Shane Dowrich should currently be in this Team Headley versus Team Weeks versus West Indies Academy series. As has now come to light, Shane Dowrich made himself unavailable for that tri-series because he's currently in England playing club cricket. And yes, I hear what you're saying. Machel, get an interview with Shane Dowrich. I'll see what I can do, right? So Shane Dowrich is currently in England playing club cricket. I would like to believe that the West Indies selectors will select him for the West Indies A Tour anyway. West Indies selectors, Desmond Haynes, Roland Butcher, whoever else, if you're listening, my advice is you select Shane Dowrich for the West Indies A Tour anyway. And I'd like to think that common sense will prevail there and he'll get selected. But this is where I differ from some of the narrative that I see online. Just because Shane Dowrich is back, just because Shane Dowrich has shown a bit of form in domestic red ball cricket, that does not mean that Josh Da Silva should be dropped. If anything, this is the argument I think we need to really be having. Given the brittle nature of the West Indies top to middle order, and at current, the top to middle order reads Raymond Reef at 3, Jermaine Blackwood at 4, Roston Chase at 5, Carl Mayers at 6. So the argument that I put to all of you watching in this particular video is there an argument to say that you move Josh Da Silva up the order to bat in the top 6? And if there are people who believe that Shane Dowrich should be called back, is there an argument to say you bring both of them in? Now, I don't know who you then give the gloves to. I don't know if I'm saying give the gloves to Shane Dowrich, because actually, arguably, you could make the argument that Josh Da Silva behind the stumps, he just set the world record. He just equaled the world record the other day, did he not? I think it was 7 catches in 1 innings, which equaled the test match world record or something to that effect. And I would actually argue that Josh Da Silva in international or test match cricket has improved significantly behind the stumps. I would actually argue that Josh Da Silva is a better wicket keeper than Shane Dowrich. That's my personal argument. I'm not saying it's facts. That's just my personal argument, right? So, but going back to the kind of general argument I'm making, is there a line of argument to say, if you want to bring Shane Dowrich back into the West Indies test side, that's not at the expense of Josh Da Silva? Do we, in fact, look at Josh Da Silva's batting technique, the fact that he's able to play straight, the fact that he tends to play balls on their merits, the fact that Josh, I think, is aware of his own game. And when I say his own game, I always like to say that Josh plays within the limits of his ability. He doesn't try to or he doesn't often try to invent shots or go for shots that aren't on. I think Josh knows his game and plays within the limits of that. And more importantly than all, I believe there is a line of argument that says that Josh Da Silva, outside of Craig Brathwaite and probably Tay Shandapur, I think there's a line of argument that says that Josh has the best defensive technique in the West Indies team. So do we move Josh Da Silva up the order? And if we move Josh Da Silva up the order, do we take the gloves off him for him to move up the order? So this video is just setting some kind of question marks for fans of West Indies cricket. What would you do? I then went and did a bit further. I did a bit. Get my words out. I did a bit more of a deep dive on it, and I said, well, let me look at Josh's performances by position. If you were listening earlier and you're taking your notes, I said that Josh has batted 38 Test match innings for the West Indies. 18 of those have been at number 7, where he averages 28. 16 of those have been at number 8, where he averages 27. So to me, it's much of a muchness whether he bats at 7 or whether he bats at 8. But certainly what does come up time and again when Josh bats at 7 and 8 is people say that given the nature of Josh's game and given Josh's, I was about to say inability, but inability is the wrong word. Josh is not a counter-attacking batter. Carl Mayers is. So when Josh is often stranded with the tail because he bats 7 or 8, does that make the best use of Josh Da Silva's game? And this is why there is a question mark to say, should we be pushing Josh Da Silva up the order? Not, should we be dropping Josh Da Silva? That's not even a question for me. My question is about where is the best position for Josh Da Silva to bat in the West Indies team? I then went and pulled Shane Dowrich's stats, right? Shane Dowrich, has, like I said, has batted 62 times innings, for the West Indies. He's batted 4 times at number 4, average 26. 4 innings, at number 4. 6 innings at number 6, he averaged 58. 44 innings at number 7, he averaged 25. 7 innings at number 8, he averaged 42. So it's a greater sample size overall, but the majority, over 3/4 of Shane Dowrich's international career for the West Indies, he has batted at number 7. When you also go and look at Josh in the recently completed West Indies Championship for Trinidad, he was batting at number 6. Shane Dowrich for Barbados, if I just go and check actually, because I want to get my stats right on this, I always want to make sure whatever stats I give you lot are always correct. When Shane Dowrich was batting for Barbados in the recently concluded first class championship, Barbados had him batting at number 6 as well. So in domestic cricket, both Shane and Josh bat at number 6 for their respective domestic franchises, Barbados and Trinidad, respectively. So again, the question is: are we wasting a Josh Da Silva? Are we wasting a Shane Dowrich by making them bat at 7 or 8 and constantly batting with the tail? Should Josh Da Silva be moved up into the middle order? When people ask questions about the brittle nature of the West Indies middle order, is the answer staring us in the face? Is the answer moving Josh Da Silva and rejigging the West Indies batting lineup? Is the answer recalling Shane Dowrich, giving him the gloves, which allows Josh to move into that middle order? Or do we forget Shane Dowrich and do we just move Josh anyway and rejig the batting lineup? Like I say, this is a short video, people. I'm looking at the timer, and the time says I've only been speaking or doing this video for 13 minutes or coming up to 14 minutes. Perfect. Because I don't want to dive too deep. I've given you some stats to work with. I've given you some facts to work with. I've tried to provide a bit of balance by saying I know that Shane Dowrich is waiting in the wings. Some people might even say, Mash, Jamal Hamilton is waiting in the wings. Currently in the Headley versus Weeks series, it's Jamal Hamilton that is the kind of second wicket keeper in the competition, really. And I know Tevin Imlach is there for the academy, but some would say, what about a Jamal Hamilton? But when I go and look at the first class stats, let me go and find Jamal Hamilton in the first class stats. This season, Jamal Hamilton, he had 9 innings at bat, made total of 241 runs, averaged 27 with the bat, 250s. So I don't know if we really put Jamal Hamilton in the conversation. We might put a Tevin Imlach in the conversation because he's 26. But Tevin Imlach this season in the first class championship, 10 innings at bat, 225 runs. He scored a century. He scored a big century, a 136 not out, but didn't do anything else. And he averaged 25 in the first class championship. So when we're talking about wicket keepers, and if we're talking about Josh Da Silva relinquishing the gloves, I think the only person you can put in the conversation at this moment in time is 31-year-old Shane Dowrich. But what does that do for the batting order? And more importantly, like I said at the top of the show, what does that mean for Josh? Is it right to now move Josh Da Silva into the top 6 and give him more batting responsibility with or without the gloves? My name is Machel St. Patrick Hewitt. That's been one of the quickest videos I've ever done for you lot. As ever, get at me in the comments below. What do you think about this Josh Da Silva conundrum? Like, share, subscribe to the Caribbean Cricket Podcast. We're on the road to 5K YouTube subscribers. Make sure you follow and subscribe on all our audio platforms as well. Just type Caribbean Cricket Podcast into your Google search bar and you'll find us. Let me know in the comments below what you think. At us at Twitter and Instagram at Carib Cricket, and let me know. I'll be Machel St. Patrick Hewitt on behalf of the Caribbean Cricket Podcast. Thank you and good night.
We rule the cricket world. Now the rule.
Welcome to the Caribbean Cricket Podcast, your one-stop shop for all things West Indies cricket. By the fans, for the fans.